Okay, so first and foremost, let me just clarify that the footage which you are about to see about me and the device which I will be using, the e-ink smartphone, this was recorded around 2 years ago, because since then I just got rid of this phone. But regardless, I still wanted to make this review for you, so let's just jump right in. Okay, so the Hisense A9. This is an e-ink smartphone, and the first question which you may ask is, why did I get an e-ink smartphone? I mean, like, nobody uses a phone with a black and white screen like this phone has. And you are correct. So everyone who decides to get such a phone has to be very determined in his goals and what this person wants to accomplish. This was me as well. I wanted a phone which would help me break free from the phone addiction which I had going on for, I think, several years now. So I got the phone, and what are my thoughts? Let me just explain. Let me just briefly go through the specs of this phone. So it has a 6.1-inch screen, but don't be fooled. This phone has bigger bezels than your current flagship smartphones. That's why it's the size of approximately an iPhone Pro Max, which I would say is quite big. It has a bottom-firing speaker. On the right side, it has the volume buttons as well as the power button. On the left side, there is a dedicated e-ink button, and on the top, there's the microphone. On the back, there's a 12-megapixel camera, which shoots decent photos and videos. I mean, it equals to the old smartphones of around 2017 and 18. If you use Gcam, then it can be improved a bit. So, since the release of the Hisense A9, several other e-ink phones also launched on the market in the recent years. So I guess I probably don't have to explain to you what e-ink technology is. But just in case you don't know, this isn't like your LCD or OLED displays, where it is bright and shiny and it has saturated colors and fast refresh rates. It uses some kind of technology where it moves the physical particles of black and white ink. But this physical movement has a major drawback, which is that the refresh rate is much slower than on traditional devices. The ink screen has 4 refresh modes. There's the slowest, where it is the most crisp and it has the least ghosting effect. And the fastest one has the most ghosting and it has the worst image quality. You can set your different apps to different refresh rate modes. So it comes handy when you open up your e-reading app of choice. You just set the best screen quality, and when you want to watch a video, then you set that app to the fastest refresh quality, like your gallery app or like watching YouTube, for example, which is doable. It's not impossible, but if you need to watch content where color is important, then you will know what to expect. The device has a 4000 mAh battery, which is like the standard of smartphones back in like 2018. And even though this phone has an e-ink screen, which in theory should use less power because it would only drain power when the screen refreshes. So when, for example, you are reading a book, if the screen doesn't refresh, then it doesn't consume any power. But because this is a smartphone and it has a SIM card in it, which is constantly connected to the cell towers, therefore you can expect a not so great battery life. With my usage, I had around 3 to 4 days, but I used the phone very lightly. For some heavier users, and also depending on what you do, this can be much less. For example, when I went on a car ride and turned on the GPS, for a 1-hour ride, the phone would drain around 20 to 30% because it would automatically set the screen refresh to the fastest rate, but that is very draining to the battery. And I also found it quite hard to navigate with the screen because even though e-ink is great in the direct sunlight, but without colors I had some trouble when I had to make a turn, for example. It's much easier to use maps navigation on a colorful screen. You probably agree with me there. Furthermore, apart from the different screen, this phone is just like any other smartphone. So it can do the same things like web browsing, messaging, emailing, all that stuff is possible here as well. And I think that is the main appeal of this phone, because I didn't want a dumb phone where I could only do text and calls. I still wanted to do the smart things which a smartphone is capable of. Texting works great as well, although I must say that the typing can be a bit more difficult than on a traditional smartphone because of the e-ink screen. As I mentioned, the refresh rate is slower, so the appearance of the letters has a bit of delay, but you can mitigate this if you enable vibration mode. That makes the texting a bit easier. And if you install Gboard, then you have the option for swipe typing as well, which works great too. In addition, let me tell you about some unusual things about this device, which takes it apart from other smartphones, and that is because of the nature of the e-ink screen. You have the option to have always on display, but it's not like on your OLED devices. First of all, you can put up a clock, a calendar, or a picture of your choosing, and it can stay there for as long as you want because it doesn't consume consume any battery. There is also a Pomodoro timer right on the lock screen, which is really helpful when you need those focus sessions for your work or for your chores, for example. A really funny thing that happened to me was when I set a fake home screen for my lock screen, and when I left it on the table at my workplace at the time, then my colleagues inspected the device and they couldn't decide what was wrong with the device, why it isn't responding. And it was just nice to fool them. Another benefit for me was that this phone actually has call recording built in right into the OS, and it records every single call that you make. This was huge for me. Back when I had the Poco F1 from Xiaomi, that phone also had built-in call recording, and I really missed this feature. I mean, come on guys, you are writing text messages to each other. How would you feel like if those would be unavailable, like after a few minutes of you writing down something? Come on, if I make a phone call to the dentist or just basically have any important call and after some days I forgot what was discussed exactly, I want to remember. I don't want to make fool of myself and call back the person, telling him that I forgot the appointment. So the call recording really does come in handy when you need it. And I think it's abysmal that phones don't have this feature. This should be enabled by default in every smartphone available. Okay, but how was my overall experience with this phone during the 1 year of use? Overall, I would say that it was really great. It taught me a lot of things about myself, about what my problems were previously with doom scrolling, and I genuinely can say that it helped me cure my problems. Let me just go in some details. Firstly, I knew that the e-ink screen is great for reading, and I wanted to get into reading more, and that happened to some degree. I read like 3 books. Okay, I know it's not much, but it's a good start for me because I've never read before. School made me hate reading. But I think the bigger impact for me regarding this phone, that it helped me cure my addiction. I must admit that that was one of the main reasons why I got this phone. And initially I thought that the lack of colors would just discourage me from watching these videos, watching a man and a woman wrestling with each other. And it did. It did discourage me because I realized that these are just moving particles, black and white particles on the screen, and what an idiot I was to be seduced by a screen. I mean, come on. And how stupid are we all? But even better, I found out in the settings that this phone actually has a dedicated student mode, which is basically a hardened parental control mode. It's like digital well-being but on steroids. First of all, you can set a password for it, a 4-digit PIN, which you shouldn't know, obviously. You should hand it to someone else and set it for you. But after that's done, you can basically configure which apps you can use. If you can download new apps, for example, you can restrict that setting. You can set bedtime mode, so for example from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. you won't be able to use the majority of your apps, so you will be able to sleep better. If you don't know the PIN code, then it's basically unbypassable, which was great news for me. And let me tell you, this hardened restriction mode helped me even more than the e-ink screen by itself. Even though you don't watch this black and white screen, you don't scroll TikTok, Facebook or Instagram because the lack of color makes it unstimulating. You can still doom scroll through texts because it is pleasant to read on. So you can still get in some rabbit holes on Reddit or Facebook or Instagram posts, whatever. So the black and white screen can make some difference, but I would say that it may not cure the doom scrolling problems of all people. But this student mode does, 100%. And it did for me. After I got used to use my phone less, the world really just became a better place. My mindset shifted. My overall outlook on life became much more positive. But after my phone usage decreased a lot, like I was using it less than 1 hour a day, I realized something. The phone, which I was carrying every day with me, everywhere, in my pocket, it basically became too big for me. It was just uncomfortable to carry this weight and size every day in my pocket when I barely use it. So even though this phone helped me a lot in curing my phone and addiction, at the end of the day, because of the size, I had to get rid of it. Other than the size, there were some other drawbacks with the e-ink screen being on a smartphone, so let me just list those. As I mentioned previously, the navigation. It is a bit difficult to use Maps navigation. Secondly, because of the lack of colors, I had some other difficulties when For example, one of my family members would send me a picture of a clothing, and I have to decide if I want it or not, and I cannot determine the color. And a color e-ink display wouldn't help either, because the colors wouldn't be accurate enough to determine if the item is good or not. As for taking pictures, as I mentioned, the phone in good lighting can take decent pictures, but as for low light, obviously it's not so great. And because of the lack of colors, it's quite hard to compose the image, and you can only see the result after you view it on one of your colorful screens, which makes it a bit harder to take good photos. And lastly, specific for this phone, this was imported from China, so that means that the 4G coverage is not so great in other regions of the world. For example, here for me, 4G was relatively fine, but in less populated areas or inside a mall, for example, it always switched back to 3G, which was not ideal. And because this is a Chinese phone, there is obviously no Google Play services, so that means that a lot of the banking apps, most of the Google apps just outright wouldn't work. You can do some tinkering to get Google Play working, but it was too much of a hassle for me, so I didn't do it. So would I actually recommend this phone? Because this is an older e-ink device, I would rather suggest you to take a look at the more recent e-ink devices, like the Hybrid series from Bigme. Those phones are a bit more capable. They have Google Play services, the Hybrid Pro even has 5G support. If you don't mind the lack of Google Play services, then you can try out the Mudita Compact as well, which is a smaller form factor phone, and it may be better suited for some people. Okay, for now, that was my overall review of the phone. Do you see yourself making this drastic change in your life to switch to an e-ink smartphone? Or at least, would you put strict restrictions on your smartphone? Or even switch to a dumb phone to preserve your sanity? Let me know down in the comments, and I have a lot more to say about these topics which I briefly mentioned in this video, so if you're interested for more, please like and subscribe, and see you in the next one.